Bonsoir, bienvenue à Kourou, au Centre spatial guyanais, où dans quelques minutes, vous allez assister au lancement d'une Ariane-4.
Hello and welcome to Europe's spaceport here at the Space Center in Kourou, French Guiana, South America, home of Ariane-Start.
Nous allons rejoindre la salle Jupiter qui se trouve derrière moi, c'est de là qu'est contrôlé tout le lancement. Pour m'aider dans la partie technique, Patrice Larcher, que vous voyez déjà installé dans la salle Jupiter. À tout de suite.
My name is Brett Klein. I will be hosting this liftoff of flight number 132 with all technical assistance coming from Bard Elliotson. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. We are live from the Kourou Space Center, home of Ariane-Start here in French Guiana. This is launch 132. All systems are go. My name is Brett Klein here with Bard Elliotson. Hello, Bard.
Hi there, Brett.
Okay, the EUTELSAT satellite is going into geostationary transfer orbit. We have all systems go. Everything is green.
Totally green status panel, just the way we like it to be.
Okay, the launching procedure looks something like this. This summary of Launch 132 from the Space Center here in Kourou begins with the new S5 processing complex, representing a major investment for Ariane-Start. The client is EUTELSAT, sending up a W1 type satellite. This Ariane 4 launching begins with the ignition of 4 Viking engines, followed by the 4 solid propellant boosters. We have solid booster separation, then first stage shutdown and separation. Second stage ignition and shutdown. Then we have the fairing opening and jettison. Separation of the second stage. Third stage ignition. And then the separation of the satellite and its placing into geostationary transfer orbit. This Ariane-Start mission is now completed. Back live in the Jupiter control room, we are about 12 kilometers from the launch pad. This part is for security reasons.
That's quite right.
Okay, this is kind of like the control tower in an airport. In fact, the operations center is 1 kilometer from the launch site, something like the cockpit of a plane. Okay. The Ariane 4 launcher. The Ariane 4 launcher has 3 stages with 4 solid propellant boosters, all built by European manufacturers. The W1 satellite was built by Astrium for EUTELSAT, the European satellite operator. Astrium is in Toulouse in lovely southern France. Ariane-Start runs the most successful satellite launching operation in the world. Bard, is it safe to say that?
We'd like to think so. Right now we see here tonight's launch window, Brett, opening at 22 hours 33 GMT and with a duration of 71 minutes.
Okay. Ariane-Start has launched a large investment program for the satellites. We see it here.
The
activity involved in the ongoing construction of the payload processing complex is making it obvious that this is a large construction development that will house the preparation of the satellite. This is not only in the early stages, but also in the final preparatory stages just before the launching. The building will increase the rhythm of both the Ariane 4 and Ariane 5 launchings. The complex will become operational at the beginning of the year 2001. It will be capable of housing the largest satellites, the ones launched by Ariane 5. For example, the ENVISAT for the European Space Agency. It will also increase our ability to respond to the needs of our clients, the technical needs that call for flexibility. The flexibility means having the 2 launchers. This year, for example, during the last 5 months of the year, our goal is to have 3 Ariane 5 launchings and 5 Ariane 4 launchings. This meets current market needs. Our experience over the past few years has shown that the market does exist, and so this new processing complex is helping us to meet the challenge with the 2 launchers. The innovative aspect of the complex is that a satellite can be entirely prepared inside. For our clients, this means that they can verify, test, and prepare their satellites following their being transported to Guyane, and then make all last-minute technical preparations. The satellite is taken out of the building only when it is placed on the vessel for the launching. This procedure enables the clients to save time, and they gain about 2 to 3 days on each satellite launching. Back live at the launch site here in the Jupiter control room, the message is that Ariane-Start, the leader, cannot ignore the competition. Bard, whom have we got here?
Gilles Trier, the Arianespace mission director, coordinating the spacecraft activities and the launch activities on this flight. And to his right, Philippe Maubert from CNES ESG, the launch range operations manager, synchronizing all the events happening on the launch range itself.
These are the guys at the top of the chain.
They are at the top of the chain here in the Jupiter control room. There are other people on top of other chains, and among them are Pierre-François Beneteau, our Arianespace launch site operations manager. He is heading up a team of quite a few people who have been preparing this launcher since about 5 weeks back, and will keep doing so until liftoff.
Now we're looking at the launch site, and we are at the operations center there, which is 1 kilometer from the launch site.
Here we have Jean-Marie Luton, the president of Arianespace. He is responsible for the flight management group with the ultimate authority for the flight tonight.
Now we're going over to see the clients tonight. It's EUTELSAT, which is a European consortium. This is a satellite operator, an entirely public consortium, although there is news coming up of changes in those lines. EUTELSAT has launched already 12 satellites using Ariane-Start. So this is nothing new for them. This is part of the course. This is a major event, something they've done before.
Absolutely, but it's still a major event each time you do it.
Absolutely. EUTELSAT has more than 700 television stations
using. In the picture right there, Brett, hidden behind that blue reflection is Julien Beretta, the Director General of EUTELSAT.
We've got a film coming up from EUTELSAT right now.
EUTELSAT launches W1, a powerful and flexible new satellite which joins the rapidly expanding system of one of the world's leading satellite operators. Positioned at 10 degrees east and operating in the KU band, W1 will replace an existing EUTELSAT 2 satellite and increase the capacity, coverage and power available at a key position in geostationary orbit. 20 of its 28 transponders are linked to a fixed beam with coverage extending from the Atlantic Islands, across Europe, North Africa and the Middle East to Central Asia. This makes W1 ideal for wide-area business communications, improving the service offered to EUTELSAT's many existing VSAT customers, including major financial services, automobile and IT companies. The reach of W1's fixed beam also meets TV broadcasting requirements. Clients to use the satellite include the EBU, the world's largest association of broadcasters. In addition, a range of Turkish television channels will be transferring their feeds to W1 for distribution links that are an essential part of their networks. The remaining 8 transponders on W1 are linked to a powerful new steerable beam that offers reception with very small antennas. The beam could be deployed over southern Africa and is optimized for bringing digital TV, internet and multimedia services to new markets. A further step in EUTELSAT's expansion into new regions. More coverage, more capacity, more services. EUTELSAT.
Back live at the launch site, according to figures in the press package provided by Vanessa O'Connor at EUTELSAT, they reach more than 80 million households. Bard, more officials here.
Yes, of course, we wouldn't launch without the spacecraft, and responsible for the preparation and tonight's countdown for EUTELSAT is Jean-Jacques Duménil, and he is being helped by Philippe Maton, the satellite project manager.
Okay, we now have a film coming up by the satellite manufacturer Astrium, the company formed by the merger of Matra Marconi Space and the Space Divisions.
The EUTELSAT W1 satellite was transported by cargo plane from Toulouse and arrived at Cayenne-Rochambeau Airport during the night of the 25th of July. In Toulouse, the satellite had completed a program of system performance measurements and passed a series of tests simulating launch and space environments. With a launch mass of just under 3.3 metric tons, the W1 satellite will be the heaviest EUTELSAT satellite launched to date. The W1 satellite arrived at the Centre Spatial Guyanais spacecraft preparation facility, where each of the satellite subsystems were configured and validated for launch, and completed final detailed inspections. On the 18th of August, the satellite was moved to the hazardous operations facility for loading of the combined propulsion subsystem on the 22nd and 24th of August. The fully loaded W1 satellite was installed on a 937BB4 adapter and encapsulated in a Type 1 fairing. As part of the EUTELSAT expansion program, W1 is the 18th satellite of the EUTELSAT KU band fleet. The satellite will take its position at 10 degrees east, allowing EUTELSAT to meet increased market demand at this position and further extend the EUTELSAT coverage into the southern hemisphere.
Okay, in fact, Astrium is one of the few major telecommunications satellite builders. Thank you, Maggie Lorine and PR there, for your help. Bard, yesterday I visited the launch site with your colleague Martine. It was quiet and hot. Today we saw the launcher on site there, and it was a different story. Really, you could feel what was going on. We've got the film of the gantry rollback coming on now.
That gantry is a very heavy, movable structure, a 3,000 ton, as a matter of fact, which is protecting the launcher and providing access to it for the 2 weeks that it spends on the actual launch pad. Okay. Of course, we can't launch through it, so we have to remove it before flight.
That's right. And look at how slowly this is going. How fast is this machine going?
The actual speed, it takes about 3/4 of an hour to move it back the 100 meters or so.
Okay, this was...
Still, we have a green status panel.
It was about 5 hours ago we saw that.
Correct.
Okay.
It's done to allow us to start fueling the third stage with the cryogenic propellants.
That's right. I'd like to talk more about that transfer later because it's a fascinating sequence there. Out in front of the Amazon forest, we see this huge launcher being sent from the assembly dock to the launch pad itself. Okay.
Now here we have a better view of Mr. Beretta, the EUTELSAT Director General.
À tous de DDO. Attention pour le début de la séquence synchronisée. Top H0 moins 6 minutes.
Now, this is a fairly significant event in the countdown, Brett, because the synchronized sequence is a 6-minute duration sequence in this operation, where all the operations from now on will be handled by the two computers that we use, one handling electrical events, the other handling fluid events on board and on ground. They will from now on be handling this in automatic mode with the operators in the blockhouse monitoring what happens, verifying that all the parameters are within the acceptable bounds.
What you're saying in effect is that human beings obviously launched this whole entire procedure and human beings shut it down, but from this point on everything is being run by these computers because the number of facts and figures and details going in and circulating throughout this procedure is just too great for humans to handle.
Correct. There are about approximately 300 controls happening during this period, and 500 parameters being monitored. So during this 6-minute period.
How did you know I was going to ask you how many figures there were?
Oh, you know, experience, I suppose.
Experience. We went through this before. It's a curious figure to see how fast the facts and figures are coming through, and how well the computers do it, and how, of course, they're being monitored by the officials in the control room here and in operations as well.
Now, the other particularity, of course, of this synchronized sequence is that if ever we were to have a stop in the countdown during this period, we would reset everything back to the 6-minute mark and restart from there.
This is the man in operations. This is the man in the blockhouse running the show. He's 1 kilometer from the actual launch pad.
Yes.
Okay, what are they? Here we are at the launch pad again. So we've just done a direct from operations right into the launch pad like that. Now we're back in Jupiter here. Okay, we have got we've got another sequence coming up here. For the moment, we're going to look at the weather now, I believe, and see what's in store for us. It seems like all systems are still go.
Normally there would be a weather picture coming onto screen, and here it is right here. And actually the last weather briefing before launch was at -10 minutes, and everything is okay. We usually look for basically two things: absence of electrical storm activity. You would not want lightning strike on the launcher during flight, or even before.
No,
even
we don't
before
want
that
lightning.
matter.
And what about wind?
And wind, ground wind and winds on altitude.
Well, certainly we are here in the tropics. This is one of the northern points in South America, and it's a lovely day here. It's been a lovely day, is that right, Bard?
Yes, and I heard from people who are out on the viewing sites that the sky is totally clear, so they will have a beautiful view of the launcher as it lifts off.
Then we couldn't be better. We should have a quick hello for people watching this at Ariane-Start headquarters in Évry and outside of Paris, and we've got the crew listening in English in Washington. Now we've got the Creo arms moving. What is this?
Well, this is a preview of what we will be seeing about 5 seconds before launch. These two arms, we use them to fuel the third stage with liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, respectively on the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the vehicle. You will be seeing that split-screen image just before liftoff, and you see those arms swing away.
Okay, we see the launch site here. We must say the weather is quite lovely here back in Jupiter control room, while our friends in Washington and Paris are probably wearing jackets and scarves already. Is that right?
I suppose so.
I guess we have it made here, huh? Okay. This is also a time to say hello to people who are watching in Japan and in Singapore. We've got figures up there. Everything looks green, Bard. Tell us about it.
Well, it's the status panel is just a synthesis of all the elements participating in the launch. You know, the launch base, the launcher itself, satellite.
Okay, I want to take this time quickly to say that Ariane-Start is comprised of 53 shareholders representing the scientific, technical, financial, and political capabilities of 12 European countries. The website is www.arianesport.com for those interested.
The man we see right now, Bernard Thévenot, he is another of the main participators in this event. He has been responsible for the production of this vehicle.
Didn't you say he's retiring?
Here he is. It's his last flight today.
À tous de DDO. Attention pour -1 minute.
We're going into -1.
Top H0 -1 minute.
Significance of -1 minute is that is when the vehicle goes on internal power.
Internal power meaning?
Operating off its own batteries instead of being supplied ground power from the base.
And we've also got a computer system inside the vehicle itself.
Absolutely.
That's in the vehicle, in the launch bay. That's right. Mm-hmm. Has that taken over yet?
It's taking over progressively as we near the launch.
Okay, we're going to stop talking now.
And let people enjoy the view of the launch, and we'll come back about half a minute after liftoff.
We say that silence is golden. We'll pick this up about 30 seconds after blastoff. Okay.
À tous de DDO. Attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage. Allumage pape, décollage. Les paramètres bord sont normaux. Le pilotage est normal. Extinction propulseur à poudre.
Well, we just now had the shutdown of the 4 propellant boosters, solid propellant boosters. They will stay on the vehicle for another few seconds before being jettisoned. All parameters, onboard parameters, are normal. DDO just announced.
We're now looking at the trajectory. That's the most important thing.
Not yet. Yes, we will soon be seeing a screen which will show us the trajectory, but for the moment we're just watching this nice image of the booster flying around. There you see the 4 solid propellant boosters being separated.
Largage des propulseurs d'appoint.
This is the first major event after the launching itself.
Indeed, sir, it is. And Brett, you haven't been here before, but you now hear the launcher passing above us, don't you?
We can hear it and we can feel it.
Yep.
I feel like my seat is shaking.
Le pilotage est normal, les paramètres bord sont normaux.
The trajectory is normal, all onboard parameters
La
are
trajectoire
balanced.
est normale.
I guess our friends in Washington cannot hear this. Okay.
Okay, now here we have the screen we were talking about, showing us the trajectory on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we have the main parameters. That
Le
is,
pilotage est normal, les paramètres bord sont normaux.
T is elapsed time, A is altitude.
Okay. So the trajectory here is normal then. We're looking at the figures that we see on the right are normal.
They're normal. And V is velocity. And you see we're already at 35 kilometers altitude and moving at almost 1 kilometer per second.
Okay, and now what we see also is that the computer
Le pilotage est normal, la trajectoire
inside
est
the
normale.
launcher is directing it itself.
Once the vehicle leaves the pad, it is completely autonomous. There is no way of influencing what it's doing.
This is a computer that's located in the vehicle equipment bay, which is actually in between the 3rd stage and the satellite itself.
Correct.
Okay, now this is something that this is a technical detail, something very interesting. We're talking about single point failure systems, which means that there's no room for failure in this, is there?
Absolutely none.
That means if there's one thing that goes wrong, it's a shutdown.
Yep, and this is indeed the reason why we must have very, very high quality in all the components that are on board.
This is the reason
and the satellite, for that matter.
This is the reason that Ariane-Start demands this high quality and gets this within a European
Les paramètres bord
framework.
sont normaux, le pilotage est normal.
Indeed. We're coming up on the 1st stage shutdown here, Brett.
Extinction premier étage.
There it is. The little flash you saw on the screen was the 1st stage
Séparation
shutdown.
premier, deuxième
Now this
étage.
is the second
Allumage deuxième étage.
so-called, let's say, big moment after the liftoff.
And the 2nd stage has ignited, and we're on our way.
Bart, I've got a question for you. I can't resist. What happens to the 1st stage?
It falls back into the ocean, into the Atlantic, way off the coast,
But you've told me this before. In fact, it gets blown up before it falls down.
such that it doesn't fall down in one piece.
So it falls down in many pieces after being blown up automatically.
You see the cursor slowly climbing there towards another little blip on the trajectory curve, which is SEP Quaff. That is the instant when we separate the fairing, which has till that moment protected the spacecraft or the satellite from the atmospheric elements.
Séparation de la coiffe.
Now we've got the fairing has been jettisoned.
Yes.
Now
Les
this is
paramètres bord
also
sont
an
normaux,
important,
le pilotage est normal.
this is an important moment because that fairing weighs about 600 kilos.
Yep. And we do not want to carry that mass along for any longer than absolutely strictly necessary.
We can also say then that in fact the satellite is now naked.
If you wish, you can put it that way. Yeah.
It's one analogy I'd like to use. Another, the satellite now is able to deal with the atmospheric pressure and the density on its own.
Well, at this altitude, you see that we're already at 137 kilometers here. And we were even lower when the fairing separator, of course. But at that altitude, there's so little atmosphere left that we have no worry of atmospheric heating.
So the satellite is able to proceed on top of the third stage without the protection?
Yes.
Exposed.
Les paramètres bord sont normaux.
Or naked.
Naked. You like that?
I get used to it.
I thought you might like that. We should talk a bit about EUTELSAT. The official word is that, in fact, EUTELSAT has launched a privatization process into a two-tiered structure.
Extinction deuxième étage.
Second stage just burnt out.
Okay.
Séparation deuxième, troisième étage.
We have separation.
Allumage du troisième étage.
And the third stage is up and running.
The third stage is up and running. Okay, I want to continue briefly on the EUTELSAT. We'll have one tier running the activities and the assets of the organization, and the second will be an intergovernmental organization to oversee some of the principles we love to hear about, such as universal service and fair competition. EUTELSAT says mid-2001 for this procedure. What do you think, Bart?
Les paramètres à bord sont normaux, le pilotage est normal.
Well, I know it's been prepared since quite a while back. I'm sure they will get there.
They might even reach the stock market one day.
Why not?
Will it be the Nasdaq or la Bourse?
Well, we'll just have to wait and see, won't we?
We certainly will. Okay. Okay. The satellite is going into the transfer orbit, or is it too soon to say that?
Well, that's where we're heading. That's clear. Of course, the work that...
Acquisition par la station télémesure de Natal.
Well, we just heard that the vehicle went out of range of the telemetry and tracking stations here in Kourou, and it's now Natal in Brazil, which is taking over that task for a little while.
So the tracking has been handed over to Natal?
Yes.
That's on Brazil's east coast?
Correct.
That's south of?
With a direct link to the base here in
La trajectoire est normale.
In Kourou, such that we can have a direct and real-time view of the main operating parameters of the vehicle.
Okay. Now we know that this orbit, the transfer orbit, is an elliptical orbit.
It is today's orbit is a little bit higher than usual. We have used the excess performance of the vehicle to provide the satellite with a 300-kilometer low point, the perigee, and the usual 36,000-kilometer apogee, high point of the
Les
orbit.
paramètres
How
bord sont normaux,
long
le
does
pilotage
this
est normal.
transfer orbit last?
Well, to go from the low point to the high point of the transfer orbit is approximately 6 hours. It takes about 12 hours to make one orbit.
Right, but then that's not the end of the transfer orbit.
Absolutely not the end of it. As I was starting to say, I mean, our part is an important part, but as far as the customer is concerned, it's only the start. We put them into this transfer orbit. Then the spacecraft and the operators will have to circularize that orbit to put it into the circular geosynchronous orbit. And that is a process that will be going on over a few days. They will start to track and communicate with the spacecraft about 20 minutes or a little bit more than that after separation from the launch vehicle by a station in South Africa. And then
Les paramètres bord sont normaux, la trajectoire est normale.
there will be a partial deployment on the solar arrays on this first day, and there will be a first firing of the onboard apogee motor on the second day.
So this is the difference between a GPO and a GO, basically.
Absolutely.
To put it in more or less plain English.
The spacecraft has to make up for what the launch vehicle does not do in that sense. The spacecraft acts as its own fourth stage, if you like.
Okay, I want to go back. We'll go back from space. Let's go back to the ground for a second, though we don't have these images on the ground anymore, obviously. The launch pad must be prepared for the next launching, because obviously there are more launchings to come, Ariane-Start being the successful launch operation that it is. What kind of heat and fire situation is there on the ground
it's
now?
a regular factory down here, you know. The activity does not stop, it just turns and turns and turns, and what will happen tonight, not very long from now, is that indeed people will start to go and have a look at what kind of damage was done to the launch table from, by the launcher, lifting off.
We were out there on the site, and that launch table is that bright orange heavy-duty table on which the launcher sits. Now, what kind of damage can be done to that table?
Well, it's heat searing for the most part, but it is conceived such as not to be too damaged from each launch. But there are some things that have to be refurbished in each launch, and it's a 3 to 4 day activity.
Now, your colleague Martine explained to me that the table, in fact, comes back along that rail line, which, in fact, when you look at it when there's nothing there, it kind of looks like a country rail line in the middle of a forest someplace, just with all the forest around it. Then, of course, that's without looking at the massive, the two structures on either side, the pad and the assembly block, of course. The table comes back after the launching, and it is switched off to the side. There's a switching platform in the middle of the rail. Yep. What happens there?
Well, we have 2 launch tables. So whilst we have one vehicle sitting for the last 2 weeks out on the pad waiting for the launch day, another vehicle is being built up in the dock 1 kilometer away. So they switch places. You know, the empty table lets the loaded table of the next launcher move up to the pad.
So we're already thinking about the next operation here at the Kourou Space Center.
Absolutely.
And this goes on and on.
On track for the next launch already.
Okay, so the one table comes back, it stops halfway, and the next table is ready to roll out. Of course, the next launcher is being prepared. We won't talk about the next launcher on this launching, will we?
Oh, I think we will hear something about that at the end of the transmission. When,
we will. Okay.
Our president starts to speak.
Oh, well, very good. We can go back and talk about EUTELSAT just for a second. They say, according to their figures, that by third quarter 2000, they are broadcasting more than 700 television channels into cable and satellite homes in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Those are big figures.
Indeed impressive. I'm one of them, by the way.
I am too. I must be. We pick it up in Paris, of course. Who are the broadcasters? The broadcasters include people such as the BBC, the RAI in Italy, Viacom, Canal Plus in France, and the Bloomberg Business Network, which is based out of London, I believe. Huh? In France also, we pick it up in French.
Do not know.
You know, I know. It's based in London. Good. I know these kinds of things.
It's good that one of us knows it.
Well, one of us is a journalist, the other one is a technical expert. You see, and that's what happens. We also have 350 radio channels that are delivered over this EUTELSAT. And there is professional television. The biggest one is the European Broadcast Union,
Acquisition par la station télémesure d'Ascension.
And then we have business services such as video conferencing, inventory tracking, telemedicine, and newswire distribution. We have groups such as General Motors and Fiat, and then Reuters and AFP sending information over the EUTELSAT. What must be said is that they are not alone. We have another tracking station picking up.
That's the Ascension tracking station that just picked up the vehicle.
Where's Ascension?
Middle of the Atlantic. A very, very remote place.
This baby is moving, huh?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Le pilotage est calme, la trajectoire.
Right now we're at 6.7 kilometers per second. So, I mean, you cover a lot of ground that way.
We cover a lot of space also.
And we have, as you see on the trajectory curve, we have just passed what we call the culmination point. That is, the vehicle is following a slightly strange curve. You know, it goes up high and then it dives down to gain speed.
Okay, I think that what's important here.
Brett, just to interrupt you, in the picture right now, the producer has sent us the picture of the third stage turbo pump. The significance of which being that this is the pump feeding the engine, and it's a fairly impressive piece of machinery. It's big as a shoebox. It turns at 60,000 revolutions per minute.
You mean it's as small as a shoebox?
Yep. Rather,
not boots, not Doc Marten boots. We're talking about a small shoebox, right?
Yeah. And
il reste 5 minutes de propulsion.
We have 5 minutes of propulsion left.
Okay, I want to get back to the satellite for a moment here, not to harp on the name so much as the procedure itself.
Les paramètres au bord sont
there are
normaux,
other satellite launchers, such as EUTELSAT. There's quite a number. They work with Ariane-Start. Ariane-Start is obviously a major link in this entire chain, which the satellites go into space, the broadcasters use them, and people pick up all these services in their homes, and businesses use the services at work. So in fact, the entire electronic information circuit is run off of these satellites,
right?
Which is the way of the future, certainly. Ariane-Start is the major player in this game.
We definitely are a major player, yes. There are others, of course.
Trajectoire et paramètres normaux.
Good part of the market, and we hope it stays that way.
This is an Ariane 4 launching we've just seen. There are, of course, Ariane 5 also, which is the next generation, so to speak.
Indeed. I mean, Ariane 5 is the response to a trend we have seen for quite a few years of satellites getting heavier and heavier as you put more and more capacity onto them. And Ariane 4, quite simply, is getting too lightweight, if you like, within brackets, for this new generation of spacecraft coming up. So Ariane 5 is a heavy lift launcher, and it's the first commercially ready heavy lift launcher.
There is still a market for both sizes in the market.
For the time being. But we see, as again, we see these heavy satellites coming along, and Europe's and Arianespace's response to that is Ariane 5.
What does this mean for the time being?
For the time being, it means that we will for some time be operating both of them, of course. You don't stop production suddenly of one and you start the other one. So we will operate them in parallel for another, up until about 2003.
In fact, this launching has been what you could call an all-European kind of launching.
It is indeed,
the satellite manufacturer, Astrium, is from southern France. Toulouse, which is the European aerospace headquarters.
EUTELSAT is a European consortium.
Airbus is built there as well, right? EUTELSAT is a European consortium, and here we are at Ariane-Start. There are clients here who are international, and there are clients who are American.
Oh, sure. We have customers from all over the world, and we have, throughout the years, Arianespace has been in the commercial activity. We have worked with practically, if not to say every commercial satellite operator in the world. And also we have worked with all the spacecraft manufacturers.
There's not that many, are there?
No, there's not a whole lot. There are 2 in France, there are about 4 in the United States. And of course, you also have production of these things in Russia and in China.
I know the last launching, Launch 131, for example, was a double launching, which is something we've not seen here. It was a Brazil satellite and an Egyptian satellite that went up.
Satellite we launched for Embratel in Brazil, built by an American manufacturer this time, and Nutzlast, built by Astrium in...
it was that. And who was the American manufacturer? Can you say that?
Les paramètres bord sont normaux, la trajectoire est
We've also
toujours
got some of the crew here from L'Oral.
Oh, sure.
They're preparing for a future launching coming up.
Before this vehicle took off tonight, there were actually 5 satellites on the base in total.
That's a lot of crews.
With crews from several manufacturers.
There was a whole crew from California out here, we know that. In fact, they're listening to this transmission in English, aren't they?
That's quite possible. Those of them who have been here sufficiently long may be listening in French, but I don't know.
I doubt it. You know how Americans are with their French, huh? You know how that goes. Well, I'm glad that they're listening to it in English. And they, of course, are coming up on their own.
Les paramètres sont normaux.
We are 1 minute away from third stage shutdown, and all parameters are normal.
We have just seen another a tracking handoff.
Acquisition par la station de télémesure de Libreville.
In Africa.
In Africa. So that shows us something of the progression of this of the satellite.
You know, the Ariane 4 vehicle, it weighs about as much as a 747. It traverses the Atlantic in 20 minutes, whereas the 747 would use, what, 6-7 hours doing the same thing?
That's a very good analogy. Of course, the people sitting in this thing might be a little cramped, wouldn't they? You'd have to serve a lot of free drinks, wouldn't you? Okay, we are coming up on
the shutdown. Any second now.
Extinction, 3e étage.
There we are. Third stage shutdown. On time.
On time. Now this satellite...
Début de la manœuvre d'orientation du composite.
Now we go into a sequence where the third stage will orient the satellite into an attitude that the customer has asked us to orient it into for its separation, and then separate it. And since this is a single launch, this will take a fairly short time.
A short time. Now we just saw a second ago on the screen, we saw a map of the elliptical orbit. There it is again. We didn't see it.
No,
we saw it, but nobody else saw it.
There we are.
There we go.
That's what we talked about a few minutes back about the GTO.
Okay.
Where you see the small part the launcher does, which is the initial yellow track leading up to the little spacecraft sitting there, and then that's the transfer orbit, the elliptical orbit, and the final geo orbit, the circle.
We're coming up on a separation here.
Séparation W1.
And there we are.
There we are. General applause
Mission accomplished.
in the Jupiter control room. Mission accomplished. How do you feel, Bard?
Good, always.
Feels
It's
good,
always
huh?
the same feeling.
Well, let's go ahead. Put it there, man. All right, we did it. The crew here has done it. This satellite now is on its own.
Yep. Won't be for long, I hope, because soon it'll start chirping its signals down to the telemetry station in South Africa, which EUTELSAT will be using.
It's running on its own computer,
Oh, sure, yeah,
its own trajectory.
yes. But contrary to the launcher, the spacecraft you can control. And it is being controlled, and it will be controlled throughout its whole lifetime.
By whom?
By operators on the ground in the EUTELSAT's control center.
Now, these are satellites that do not have a tremendous amount of hardware and software in them.
Oh, they do have a... Hang on, Brett, we'll just get a replay of the launch, so we'll just let that pass without commentary.
Allumage PAP, décollage. Les paramètres bord sont normaux. Le pilotage est normal.
There we are. That image came from the Toucan viewing site, where a fair number of people were watching this flight, and I'm sure they had a beautiful view of that takeoff.
Were they listening in French or in English?
Well, we'll see, won't we?
We certainly
Oh, yeah.
will. I want to get some feedback on this. We've got scenes from the Jupiter control room now. We've got a lot of smiles.
Absolutely. We're waiting for Mr. Luton and Mr. Beretta to come up front, and there will be the usual speeches after the launch.
They've got declarations to make.
Always.
I was saying before about the satellite, the signals that go from this satellite, they go to relay stations.
Well, they go to a telemetry reception station, yeah.
Right.
And there are several of them, since the spacecraft or the satellite in the transfer orbit is actually going around the Earth, right? It traverses the whole globe, so to speak. So you need several of those stations to have continuous coverage.
Right. Now, once the satellites start working,
Once it's working, once it's in geosynchronous orbit, you can use just the one station with a fixed antenna, because the spacecraft normally should be staying relative to the Earth in a fixed place.
this particular spacecraft is at 10 degrees east over Gabon.
Yes.
The process that works with the signals are going off the satellite. We're talking television, we're talking business communication, we're talking internet,
Direct TV,
direct TV,
direct broadcast TV.
everything. This is one of a family of satellites.
It will be arriving on its final position on day 13 after launch.
What's the next step for Ariane-Start? We've got the 5 now, we've got the Ariane 5.
Yeah.
What's the next step?
Well, who knows? In the future? Already, let's try and make Ariane 5 the same success as Ariane 4 has been, and use that for a few years.
That's not a very
we'll see.
risque kind of a statement, is it, Bart? I want to hear something dramatic coming from you here.
Oh, you want to hear reusable launch vehicles and warp drive, Star Trek, that kind of thing?
Ah, well, I wouldn't. We've got a declaration
Mesdames,
coming.
Messieurs, cher Giuliano,
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Giuliano, it's a great pleasure for me to announce to you that the launch of W1 was totally successful. this payload, this satellite, which is a cornerstone for EUTELSAT assignment. This adventure started about 10 years ago when we launched F1, and at that time Giuliano Beretta attended the launch and participated. He had not yet fully joined EUTELSAT, but he had been one of the designers for that launch program. This is the 13th satellite launched on behalf of EUTELSAT by Ariane-Start. This 13th satellite that was launched really on the dot, on the day we had scheduled, and under the conditions that were totally optimal. I would like to take that opportunity to say a word about the fact that this is the first launch of Giuliano Beretta as the Director General of EUTELSAT. Congratulations. This really illustrates an exemplary cooperation that will hopefully, and I am sure, will go on being exemplary with the next launches, in particular the one of EuroBird. Now to Astrium, their representatives are among us. They will soon take care of the actual orbiting of the satellite, and I really hope that this will also be a great success. Now I'll hand over to Giuliano. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank Ariane-Start for this very smooth mission. We could follow it, and we saw that everything was perfectly nominal, without any moment of suspense. The suspense, of course, it was continuous for me, because obviously being the responsible of this organization and considering the importance of this satellite, every moment was lasting an hour. And we are very happy that the satellite has gone separated from the rocket, and now is going to live his own life. I want to thank also the people of Astrium. Actually, I should wait a little bit to thank them, because they still have to make some work to place the satellite in the G-orbit, but I am confident that this final maneuver will happen without any problem. As Jean-Marie was saying, this is a very important moment for me, not only because W1 is an extremely important satellite for the development of internet, for the development of our mission of business communication, but also because it is exactly 10 years ago that I was here in Kourou for the first launch of 2F1, which was the first real important satellite completely built by EUTELSAT. Before EUTELSAT was using the European Space Agency built satellite. It was the first satellite that EUTELSAT was launching. So this 10th anniversary is extremely important. In 10 years, we went from one satellite to 18 satellites in orbit today, and we went from a relatively small operator doing telecommunication to a very strong operator in the field of television, in the field of telecommunication, and particularly today in the field of multimedia, which is the new economy, the new technology opening for us and for everybody in the world. So I think that this is very important to see the progress of EUTELSAT in this period. We are planning to launch many more satellites. We have 6 in construction. I see some of my shareholders here, and they are very happy, I think, to finance this fantastic development of the organization. And we are today the 3rd fleet in the world, and we are running maybe to get one day the 2nd place. You never know, and very soon, I hope. So we are expanding from an organization that was mainly European to an organization that is becoming a global player. And not only from an organization that is global player, for a company that will be a global player, because in 10 months from now, we are going to privatize EUTELSAT. It will become a French company, Société Anonyme. And we think that with this new impulse of the new world of multimedia, new company, we are going really to have a fantastic new development. And we hope with many launches done with Ariane-Start. And as a matter of fact, we are going to sign very soon, maybe tomorrow, I think, a contract for 2 additional launches. So we are, in this case, playing completely the European card, signed these 2 contracts. We had a very good treatment by Ariane-Start. We were very happy of the success that we had with them, and we think that we want to continue with them. I want to thank Ariane-Start, as I said before, Astrium. In particular, I want to thank my colleagues that spent so much effort, so much energy in making this satellite, in particular Jean-Jacques Dumenil, my technical director, that was working very hard in the last month to place in orbit this satellite and to complete our fleet. I want to send also a salut to the people where I could not be today for the inauguration of the monument to Marconi in Italy, because it was a coincidence with the launch, but making this greetings from here, I think they can understand that I had something very important and I couldn't be there. Thank you very much to everybody, and I say to the success of EUTELSAT and to the success of Ariane-Start and of course of Astrium. Thank you.
Merci pour les paroles aimables.
Thank you so much for the kind words that Giuliano uttered for Ariane-Space and for the promises of tomorrow. I would like to tell all those present here that the operations are not fully completed yet. Also, next week, on the 14th of September, we'll have a new launch with an Ariane 5 launch vehicle to launch GE7 on behalf of General Electric, and Astra 2B. SOS. Well, we do launch for other customers. Yes, sorry about that. And this month we'll also launch another Ariane 4 in the night of the 26th of September to the 27th to launch EUROPE-STAR. Now, I'd like also to thank all the teams that worked so hard for that launch, and they're still working for the next launches as well as the pending launches before the end of the year, since, as you heard, we're planning on launching more satellites by the end of the year. Thank you really to all for the efforts you devoted to each operation. Thank you so much.
Bard, we're about to see a replay now.
Yep.
We're about to see a replay of this launching. Launching of a EUTELSAT satellite W1. There it goes.
Allumage. Allumage PAP, décollage. Les paramètres bord sont normaux.
Okay, we've seen a replay of this launching tonight. It's time now to say goodbye and welcome back to a few people.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got another replay coming up right now. W1 satellite, EUTELSAT, going off on this Ariane 4 launcher.
Allumage. Allumage PAP, décollage. Les paramètres bord sont normaux.
Okay, Bart, back in the control room. First, we have a welcome back to the GE Americon people, the satellite launcher going up on September 14th with the satellite built by Astrium and Lockheed Martin. And then we're going to say goodbye.
SES.
SES GE Americon satellite launcher. Okay, we're going to say goodbye now for all the people who have worked on this. First, we've got a goodbyes to the entire crew working here at the French Guiana Space Center at Kourou. Okay, that's the launch crew and the broadcast crew, of course, putting this together, including my boss, Jacques de Navaux, and to you, Bart, as well. Then we've got goodbye to the Ariane-Start headquarters in Évry, outside of Paris, all the people watching there. We've got goodbyes to the people in Toulouse watching this. And we've got goodbyes to the Ariane-Start people watching this in Washington, and they're watching in English, so they're hearing this, and to the people watching in Japan and Singapore. What do you say, Bart?
Well, what can I say? A nice mission. Nice to work with you, and goodbye to everybody out there.
Goodbye to everybody out there. We've got more launchings coming up. This is a success. Thank you very much, everyone. See you next time.
Voilà, ça y est.
So, good morning and good evening to everybody, actually. We are here in Kourou, and it is with great pleasure that I'm sending you a greeting. I'm sorry not to be in Paris in person, but I think that I will be virtually there via satellite in a very good moment for EUTELSAT, because we have just succeeded in launching the satellite W1, thanks to the fantastic performance of the Ariane launcher, which was doing a perfect job for us. I like to leave the word to Jean-Marie Luton to give you greetings as well. Congratulations to you.
So, chers amis, je voudrais vous saluer pour à l'occasion de ce lancement réussi qui est une grande opération pour EUTELSAT. Je voudrais vous dire que tout s'est bien passé. Ça a été un tir extrêmement calme, extrêmement précis, et que vous souhaitez à tous d'avoir des débats fructueux pour les temps qui viennent. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you to everybody.